Once again, welcome aboard. And we are actually going to talk about the very key certifications within the PMI world and as well in general global project management world. Is PgMP is really right for you? And what are the kind of prerequisites that are required in order to move forward with the certification? And what is the advantage of getting that particular certification? And what is it really required in order for you to obtain such things? And what's a kind of a timeline that you can actually aim for to get the necessary certification, which is nothing but the PgMP? At a very high level, this is going to be my agenda. So basically, I'm going to introduce myself, who I am, and what is my kind of credentials, qualifications, experience, etc. Then afterwards, we are going to talk more in detail about what is PgMP, and why it is actually considered to be as a key certification within the project management. Then we are actually going to talk about the core topic for the webinar for today, which is PgMP right for you? If it is right, what do we need? If it is not right, what do you think you need to do it to become right? That's all we are going to talk about. And the core eligibility requirements, etc. Then what is the process behind the PgMP, and what does PMI do in order to really to get your certification in place before writing the exam, and what kind of panel that this consists of, and what do they ask in general, the questions related to the PgMP, etc. Your experience, your credentials, your educational background, all those kind of details we can go over. And finally, I just wanted to open up the floor for every individual who are going to become an aspiring PgMP to ask any questions, and then we can take it from there. Okay, so just a kind of quick background about myself, and I've been actually in the IT industry for more than 25 years and been actually participating in various organizations, and as well I currently possess various certifications and other kind of details which is outlined very clearly. And I'm also a board member of IPMA, which is International Project Management Association, and I also possess their highest certification, which is the Project Director Level A certification. And I'm also a GECO assessor. GECO is basically a young project management crew, and I'm actually one of the assessor for them. So basically, I grooming up the young project managers within the project management field. As well, I'm also a certified project management professional, and in addition to that, I am also an SPC from the SAFE. So to highlight on those particular areas, I do have various certifications within the Agile world, and I'm also an active contributor within these particular forums, etc., and so on and so forth. In addition to that, I also do a coaching, mentoring young project management professionals who can actually get into the project management field. And I'm also a leadership and a career executive coach as well. So this is basically a kind of quick snapshot about who I am, what I am, etc. Okay, and these are the kind of certifications just showing some kind of value based on my knowledge, experience, which I have actually obtained. Okay. So now, first of all, what is PgMP? Again, before even going into the PgMP, I am assuming people who have joined in this call are already in the path of either obtaining their PMP, or either they would have already got a PMP, now looking to expand themselves into the PgMP world, which is basically program management. Program management is nothing but where you are going to talk about where you are going to manage multiple projects, portfolio of projects under your belt, to manage your delivery stream across the board, and various project managers who might be potentially be reporting to you, or either you might be the one program manager, but there will be many project managers across different business units, etc., are actually going to work. And you are the kind of a key resource, key individual, or a point of contact to ensure that particular program is actually managed properly, delivered properly, managing various risks, managing vendor relationship, stakeholder management. There are various key attributes and key aspects that you need to possess. Currently, if you have PMP degree, PMP qualification, for example, PgMP is actually almost 50% of the knowledge is already obtained as part of the PMP. In fact, I'm talking about the knowledge and as well the domain areas that are covered in the PMP, more or less very well aligned with the PgMP domains. But only thing, the difference between the PMP and the PgMP in this case is, from the PgMP perspective, you are actually going to set some standard process, procedures, etc. at the portfolio program level, and the governance needs to be established. So that's a kind of subtle difference between these two. Having said that, the complexity of the PgMP is basically more of a scenario based, more of a case study based, where you might need to use your knowledge is more than your practical experience. So we will actually go very much deep into that while when I'm actually going to explain about the whole PgMP, what is it really going to take for you to obtain that. So in this case, managing multiple portfolio of projects, managing multiple portfolio of programs. Sometimes you might be actually be managing more than one program too. There are situations where I have actually managed multiple programs. And in that case, I'll be having a kind of a whole, like meaning a lot of project managers and a lot of business leads, etc., directly reporting into the program level, where I have to manage a lot of complexities, a lot of risk, etc., and a lot of dependencies, etc., which is actually going to spawn across these multiple programs. So that's very complex, actually. So in order to do that, you need to establish the governance team, you need to establish a project management team, you need to establish a program management team, then you need to establish project management, program management office. So there are a lot of things which you need to do as a program manager if you are beginning the program from the inception stage. Okay, so that is basically at a very high level what is PgMP. Okay, now let's actually jump on directly for, is PgMP is really right for you? I just wanted to understand exactly, I think within the audience, can somebody actually tell me how many of you are already holding a PMP qualification, certification, etc. Maybe probably you guys can actually exchange the details through the chat and through the Q&A chat, actually I'm talking about. Then I'll be able to really get a kind of a sense of understanding. Okay. Chat is disabled. Oh, I'm able to see your chat, Mohammed. Okay. Excellent. It looks like many of the audience over here already possess PMP. Okay. And with respect to PMP, I just wanted to understand, because many of the people who are trying to enter into the project management world, by default, everybody will say, okay, let me actually first obtain PMP. But prior to PMP, some people will directly go into CAPM, which is the certified associate in the project management. Then they will actually try to apply for the PMP. Some people directly go to the PMP, irrespective of it, doesn't matter, whichever the way you are going in. But PMP will actually give you a kind of basic fundamental and foundation for you to become the aspiring PgMP holder. But you got to be a little bit careful, because if you are having a PMP hold certification, and if within the industry, assuming if you are actually only around 8 years or 9 years, Some of the eligibility requirements you might need to watch out for before applying for the PgMP, which we will talk more in detail when we are talking about the overall process and the procedures to obtain the PgMP. So on that note, having a PMP is actually going to help you to prepare very well for the PgMP. That is definitely for sure. But both the PMP and the PgMP, both of them are 4 hours of duration from the examination perspective. But the preparation is actually going to be completely different, because PMP actually focuses the core knowledge and the domain areas related to how you are actually going to manage a particular project or a work stream. But PgMP is going to talk about stakeholder management in a very high level, not high level, very deep actually, and how to influence the stakeholder. What do you need to do as a program manager? And in order to do all those things, definitely there is a good amount of time that you need to dedicate yourself in order for you to actually prepare for the PgMP, because there are about 5 domain areas that are very, very core. And each of these domain areas, if you really look into it, there is a distribution of the certification questions that are expected to come. And some of those are very high. And then you might need to actually tackle all those things. And all of these particular questions are scenario based technically. And the scenario based, when you're trying to actually answer those particular questions, you should not apply your own practical experience, because that is not what it is for. That's why the reason, similar to PMBOK, you need to actually be thorough with the SPM. So now, given the fact of comparison between the PMP and as well the PgMP, if you really look into it, it gives you a broader spectrum of how you can actually manage a portfolio of projects. That gives you a different type of experience for you. And you need to actually manage various multiple stakeholders within the program that you are actually managing it. Sometimes what happens is, after obtaining the PMP, many people will be very much quick in trying to prepare themselves for PgMP. From the certification process perspective, yeah, maybe probably you might be able to cover it up and eligible. But after obtaining the PgMP immediately within a shorter duration, the value that you have gained from the preparation is not really going to be utilized very well. So I would strongly recommend, as a PMP holder, try to actually understand the whole building blocks of the project management thoroughly. Use those particular experience as your guiding principle, and then give a kind of a time for you to really to jump into the PgMP world. That's, again, I'm not recommending that everybody do not do it right away. All I'm saying is it needs to have some kind of value behind it when you are actually obtaining the certification. And the certification needs to be pretty much, it needs to derive some returns for you. When I say returns, competency. When I'm talking about returns, I'm talking about knowledge. Obviously, monetary factor too. But all those things are actually going to be based on the industry that you are working on, and is there a need for program manager, etc. All those things. So all those particular attributes and factors that you need to consider. So first of all, is PgMP right for you? I will say, in general, all the PMP holders, definitely the PgMP is right for them. But it all depends upon the industry experience that they currently have, and what is the timeline that they are actually going to prepare in order to obtain the PgMP, etc. But at the same time, some people will be asking, without having a PMP, can I go directly to PgMP? Of course, yes. There is no any hard and fast rule that PMI is static, that you need to have a PMP. If you don't have a PMP, but you already have an industry experience and other kind of prerequisites, certainly you can actually become eligible for PgMP. So that is not at all a problem. But only thing is, directly moving to a PgMP requires strenuous amount of dedication, amount of practice, and you have to be very thorough with the entire SPM up and down. Technically, top to bottom, you need to really know that. The jargons that they use. Sometimes they talk about portfolio, sometimes they talk about program, sometimes they actually mix with the project. But everything has a proper connotation that you might need to be more familiar with it. That's why the reason PMBOK and SPM, you need to do it, read it together, because some of those are easily adaptable and it is applicable as well for the PgMP. And how do you actually establish a program? How do you establish the governance structure? How do you establish the PMO organization structure for a program management? All those things you need to be very, very, very familiar. And that will help you to answer some of these, not some of these, pretty much majority of these questions. Both the PMP and as well the PgMP are in the same model of 170 questions, 4 hours duration. And all of these things are completely scenario based. And we will go more in detail about some of the areas of the questions. How do they actually ask? What kind of response that you might need to give? And some of these things are divided into easy, medium, and complex type of questions. We can go more in detail once you are ready for the next step to apply for the PgMP. I'm happy to actually help through ProThoughts in order to really to get your necessary certifications. Okay. Now, what is the kind of eligibility? Eligibility is basically who should apply for the PgMP. If you have the proven ability to manage multiple related projects and navigate complex activities that span functions, organizations, regions, or cultures to align results with organizational goal, that you are a potential, then you are a potential PgMP. Technically, what does this mean is, as a project manager, you are actually going to work with variety of people. So you already are familiar with the organizational culture. Then you are actually going to determine from the program perspective, what is the organizational goal that is going to be set. That means you are already familiar with that as well. Then you are actually going to talk about multiple organizations, multiple business units, and multiple vendors, stakeholders, etc. Once you've become all those familiar within yourself, where you are going to constantly interact, it is the right time for you to decide on obtaining the PgMP certification. That means I'm not saying that it takes a longer period. It depends upon the industry that you are working on. It depends upon the type of the organization that you are actually working on, etc. All those things matters a lot. But sometimes I would recommend, some of the organizations might support the PgMP, might not support the PgMP, but as an individual, try to put some kind of self-learning for yourself to obtain these particular certifications, and do not actually wait for the organization to do any kind of support for you, because that's how you actually grow within the career. In other words, what I'm saying is self-learning and as well self-discipline to obtain these certifications adds more value to it. Then you know the purpose behind it. That's why the reason I'm saying that way. And what is the prerequisites? For example, if you hold a secondary degree, which is nothing but a high school diploma or an associate degree, that's one of the prerequisites. Then 48 months of project management experience or a PMP, 84 months of program management experience within the last 15 years. So you can actually see, when you have your basic educational qualification slightly lower, then the requirement is actually going to be a little bit high. Otherwise, if you already hold a 4-year degree, then technically you are looking for 48 months. And if you really look into the 4-year degree, 48 months of program management experience within the last 15 years. So what you need to do is basically, you need to actually make sure yourself first validate all of these things are set. If it is set, then technically you are partially in the right track for you to apply for the PgMP. And the cost which I've given is, member is actually $800 US. If you're not a member, you are actually going to pay $1,000 US. And for the eligibility requirements and everything, I would strongly recommend all the audience to go and visit PMI and read completely the PgMP handbook that actually outlines exactly how you need to apply for the exam, how you need to prepare your application. We will go in deep shortly. But these are the kind of things or the materials which I would strongly recommend. First of all, review that, and then we can take it from there in order for you to become the aspiring PgMP holder. Okay. And PgMP is actually an in-person exam. It is not going to be, I know that they were thinking of actually making that online, but I don't know whether that has already been approved yet. But everything is actually going to be in person, similar to PMP, where you might need to actually go to the nearest training centers, certification centers who are authorized to conduct all the PMI exams. And you can actually go over there and apply for it and appear for the exam, which is about 4-hour duration. I'm going to pause here right now. Are there any specific questions before we can go a little bit more in detail about this? Okay. I'm reviewing some of the questions that is posted in the chat. I think Abhishek actually has asked a question. He is a PMP certified, trying to understand if PgMP is now best next certification to claim. To be very honest, what is the next best certification? Is PgMP or anything else? All of these things actually add a value to it. There is no any best and the least or worst and the least, etc. Definitely, it adds a value to it. People do recognize if you are a PgMP holder, they do know that you can manage complex programs. So that's an advantage for it. But when is the best time? I think as an individual, you might need to determine whether you are ready, first of all, with all of these things. I'm going to highlight some of the preparation process that is really required in order for you to become PgMP holder soon. So that preparation time is very, very valuable here for you to become a PgMP holder. I hope that answers the question, Abhishek, for you. Okay. Okay. I think many of the people, the cost of the exam, which I gave you already, Rakesh, which is $800 US. For a non-member, it is $1,000 US. Anybody has any other questions? Okay, I'm moving on to the next. Okay, now let's talk about the core process. What does it involve for you to first apply for the PgMP? Step one is basically the application creation. Okay, you might need to actually create an online application first. If you are a member, you can actually go into your membership portfolio and then where you can actually look for certification. If you are not a member, I would strongly recommend you to become a member. That's because of the cost differences specifically for all of these particular certification. It helps you to pay less. That's the whole idea behind it. Then you can actually go into the profile of yours, create your portfolio, create your application, and then you can actually, within the certification, you should be able to choose the certification that you're applying for. In this case, it's PgMP, and begin the application. Once you know that you are actually eligible to apply for it, then it is time to apply for you and collect the following information, which is your basic contact information, your education. Educational qualifications are really required here. There are about 23 or 32 PDU hours that are really required in order for you to actually first sit for the exam. So as part of the PgMP training, that already covers for you. So technically, when you are actually going to sit for the exam through PgMP preparation, etc., what happens is that hours of training will be easily be converted into education PDU. That is the basic requirement. Then you can actually use that towards your application to submit the same. Then the domain experience. Okay, for some people, you will be actually be working on multiple projects, programs, etc. I would strongly recommend do not put all the projects and experience as part of your domain experience. Of course, you might need to actually put those things to justify your overall experience requirement. But when you are actually showcasing the domain experience, pick only one project or a program, because you might need to actually describe about what is the program is about, what is the program's objective is, what's the end goal that you have achieved after successful delivery of that particular program. And as part of the program, are there any projects involved? Are there any multiple stakeholders involved? Are there any kind of portfolio managers are there? How did you manage your finance? How did you manage your risk? How do you manage each of these stakeholder influence part? All those particular details, you need to capture it very properly. And PMI is looking for very crisp response. Don't give a kind of a very detailed responses, which is actually going to make them to read, and as well at the same time, they will take very long time for you to respond back. Sometimes once you submit the application, it takes a little longer for you. And that's because some of the details that you have provided requires more clarifications. So that domain experience you need to justify. Then the domain education, which is nothing but the education attained, and the domain education, which is in this case, for example, education attained is nothing but for your basic qualification, right? That's exactly what it is. And what you might need to do is, you need to specify that particular experience within the application. Then the domain education is nothing but your program management experience that you would like to cover it up. That's what it is. So in this case, if you're coming through ProThoughts, you are actually going to specify that. Once you open an application, it will actually remain active for 90 days, after which time it will close. Okay. Now the step 2 is basically the completeness review. Completeness review is nothing but your application completeness. And that's the first step. Once that is completed, PMI will send you a confirmation email for you to make the payment for the application. Again, watch out here. Application completeness is one of the critical steps, as you need to document the real-time program project management experience and map it to the corresponding domain of the SPM. SPM, which is nothing but the standards of the program management. Similar to PMBOK, program management actually has the same, actually. This is very critical, and you don't have to choose many project programs. Even one project program which satisfies all the required criteria is good. Okay. Now I'm actually going to hold on to this step 1 and step 2. Let me know if there are any questions on this. Okay. All right. To what level my understanding of Agile will help me in PgMP? Okay. Who's that? Give me a second. Mohammed, to answer your questions, you are talking about two different things. The PgMP does not focus on Agile. Of course, it does cover the aspect of the Agile, but it doesn't mean that it is actually going to test you more on to what is Agile and how the Agile works. No. So definitely both of them are two different track. Both of them are completely two different level of certifications. And I don't think you need to actually mix PgMP and Agile together. Of course, there will be some kind of statements that will be mentioned as part of your use case scenario, as part of your exam, but you don't have to be too much concerned about that. I hope I've answered your question. Okay. Once the application completeness is completed, you are ready to apply, and you have received an email from PMI stating that your application has been submitted, etc. most of the times what happens is everybody, almost I will say 50 to 60% or maybe 70%, you will clear that and get yourself prepared for your panel interview. And in the panel interview, they will actually, before even going into the panel review, there is an audit review that happens. Occasionally, some of the applications are selected for auditing. Why they choose it for auditing? Because some of the details that you have specified within the application is not accurate. Your education does not really align with what you have stated, etc. And sometimes your references, your experiences that you have quoted doesn't really align with the SPM. So that's why the reason the critical part is the completeness review is very, very important. And as well, there is a separate process that you need to go through in preparing the application. Because if your application is not prepared properly, you will get rejected. When I say rejected, it is nothing but through the auditing process. And you have to actually demonstrate a lot of things. And sometimes your application has to be redone completely. And we are here to happy to help you in preparing that particular application. That's a different process by itself. We can evaluate your application and then we can actually help you to correct certain things. Those things can be done. That is not at all a problem. But the correctness of the application is very, very important and key. And I wanted everybody to be aware of that. Okay. Once that is completed, the audit review, say for example, you don't even get an audit review at all, which is absolutely fine. You don't have to worry too much. Then it will automatically go into the panel review. The panel review is basically eligible program managers who are already in the industry, experienced program managers in the industry, and other related audiences within the program management will be reviewing your application. Sometimes they will actually call you for a phone interview quickly to verify and validate how did you manage this particular program, how did you manage this portfolio. They are actually doing it just to validate whether you have the necessary competency to appear for the exam. Sometimes you don't get a panel review at all. You will directly be asked, depending upon the industry experience that you have, depending upon the application, the way you have actually written down, and you have already provided all those things. Sometimes you might not even go through the panel interview. In fact, when I actually applied for it, I didn't even go through auditing. I didn't even go through panel review. Straight away, my application got accepted. And within about matter of, there was a delay due to COVID, but at the same time, prior to that, I will say it didn't took that long at all for me. But some people, when they are actually specifying the content within the application, that makes a lot of a difference. And you need to watch out for that. Okay. And the audit review actually occurs in order for them to be more compliant. That's why the audit review actually happens. That's why they actually choose applications randomly to make sure PMI is doing their due diligence. That's what it is for. Okay, the panel review, which I said, once the audit review is completed, for the sums, audit will not occur, and then they will move forward to the panel review. This is one of the critical steps whereby panel of the program managers who are already PgMP holder will review your experience to map it against the program management standards with your commented program experience in the application. If the review is success, you will receive a confirmation email from PMI to schedule your exam accordingly. You would have already made the payment as part of your initial completeness review. But the question is, in this panel review, if you are getting rejected for some reason, all you have to prove it to the panel members is you are eligible and you have the right experience and you have the right education qualifications. And you need to justify them to ensure all of the process behind the SPM are also captured properly within your application. And you need to literally validate and justify them. That's all. Then they will actually accept the application for you to move forward. Assuming if it is failed, you need to revisit their ask, ensure you are able to provide the necessary documented evidence and your evidence of your experience, references, etc. Again, please note that panel review time varies between applicants, and you need to wait for all of those to get completed before the exam can be scheduled. And it will not even allow you to schedule the exam, first of all. if you don't have all of these things cleared. Okay. Now that we have actually really reviewed the entire process for how to obtain the PgMP and what are the prerequisites and what is the application process it takes for you to really to get into the mood of obtaining the PgMP. Now we are talking about benefits of having the PgMP. When you have hold a PgMP, that means you are pretty much knowledgeable. Experience-wise, you need to demonstrate, but from the knowledge-wise, you are thorough as a program manager. That will actually put you into the elite group of people of PgMP holders, that is for sure. But you also need to demonstrate your knowledge-based experience, combining with the SPM, combining with the other organizational cultures and everything. When you start demonstrating all those things, it's easy for you to map your PgMP certification qualification very well. That's the whole purpose behind it, right? After your certification, sometimes you will be able to develop some of these kind of core skills within your organization for you to grow. There is a good chance that they will recognize you for that. So these are all the kind of benefits that definitely you are actually going to obtain as part of your certification. Okay. So now I'm going to conclude this. Choosing the PgMP certification and preparing for the same is really a long and strenuous process. Yes, it is. Though at the end, you will be in a position to reap the benefits without any kind of questions asked. For sure, yes. Okay. Though I've been actually in the industry for almost more than 25 years, the question is, slowly I actually invested my time, my money, and everything towards obtaining these certifications. All of these things are basically self-disciplined way for me to obtain, and I'm still continuing to learn quite a lot. So that's exactly what I would recommend the entire audience to follow the same pattern. Do not wait for your organization to support you, because some do, some does not. Having said that, getting these kind of credentials is one, but at the same time, applying those credentials are key. And you need to find out your way, how to apply that, and what do you need to do? How do you think you can demonstrate? That's up to you, how you can actually showcase those. That actually, once you start doing that, technically, you will see the value in more. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay, I'm going to respond back to Raghavendra. Is PgMP more about governance of multiple related projects, or do we have something similar to various knowledge areas or domains in PMP? As I stated in the beginning, the domain areas of the PMP and the domain areas of PgMP are having a slight subtle difference. The governance, establishing the PMO organization, establishing the portfolio organization, all those things actually happens within the project management world. But that does not happen in the PMP world. If you are a PMP holder, you are actually going to manage only that particular project or the work stream to make sure all the components and the dependencies are taken care. But when you are actually managing as a program manager, you are actually going to manage multiple portfolio of projects. And you need to establish the governance team. You are going to be instrumental in doing that. So to answer your question, is PgMP more about governance? Definitely not. This is actually, it's basically like meaning, a simple analogy which I wanted to give you is doing your grade 12, now you are actually going into the university. How do you compare yourself from a +2 versus the university? It's basically like that, technically, right? But whatever you have learned in the grade 12, you are going to apply some of those particular concepts as part of your university too. But that's actually at a broader spectrum. So then that means pretty much you are actually going to do the same thing, nothing else different, but in a elaborated way. That's exactly what you're going to do. I hope that answers your question, Raghavendra. Okay, Mohammed, to answer your question, to what level does the certification build my ability to increase the ROI and the ECM? I'm not understanding your question. Are you actually telling What's your return of investment for your PgMP? Is that what you're asking? If that's what you are asking, the return of investment is basically, I think, for every certification that you obtain, you are the main individual driver to make sure that you are able to get back, reap that benefits monetary wise and as well experience wise. So if you're trying to actually equate for every single certification that I be able to get my ROI, that's up to you, how you wanted to drive and how you are actually positioning yourself within the industry, how you are actually managing your experience and how you are actually showcasing that ability to the client. That matters a lot, right? So that's what it is. Okay. Anybody has any other questions? Okay. Again, just wanted to touch base as part of this particular webinar. You know that these are the kind of areas that ProThoughts actually focus upon, and pretty much they cover whole gamut of the PMI certifications, etc. All of these certifications do have greater value, and how you need to use it and how you are planning to use it makes a lot of difference. Getting a kind of a certifications just like that and may not able to make use of it, obviously it will not have any much value. But at the same time, you need to find out your sweet spot to utilize those particular learning experience and how you can actually climb up within the career ladder. It depends upon you. Okay. And ProThought is a PMI's authorized premier training partner for program project management trainings. Obviously, there is a free knowledge sessions are being conducted by ProThoughts. You can actually join in and you can actually obtain some of the core project management, program management knowledge areas. Okay. I think that really concludes as far as this PgMP right for you. And definitely, I'm happy to actually help you in all the directions, right from reviewing the application, right from creating the application for you. When I say creating, I will review your application. I will not create the application for you, but I will review your applications, provide some kind of guidance, and I will actually be able to give you the pointers how you need to position yourself. Those kind of experience, those kind of assistance can be provided. Then once that is done, pretty much you are on the way to obtain the PgMP. And as far as the PgMP preparation is concerned, I do actually conduct the end-to-end training from the PgMP perspective through ProThoughts, and certainly that can be covered. And pretty much each of these particular training sessions are actually going to be conducted in the interest of how effectively you can clear the exam. That's what my main focus is going to be. What kind of materials that you need to prepare for, and what kind of mock exams that you need to complete, and make sure you are at a certain level before even thinking that you are ready for the exam. It requires good amount of practice. When I say good amount, it is definitely a long hours. So it depends upon how you are actually managing your time, and the normal journey of ready for the exam, anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. If you are continuously preparing, if it is going to be longer, obviously the time is actually going to be. So within a matter of 3 to 5 months max, you should be in a position to cover up the exam, get yourself ready. Because what you can do is each of these particular domain areas, you can actually schedule about 2 weeks per domain area, completely be thorough. And the SPM is very, very key tool for you. And as well, PMBOK is another key tool for you. So use those two materials up and down. and take each domain areas accordingly and focus on that. Once you do that, you can actually do your mock exams for each of these particular domain areas and get yourself familiar with it. Again, don't expect on the first attempt itself, you are actually going to score about 70 to 80%. Definitely not. You will actually score only 20%. That's fine. But the 20, make sure next time you attempt the same set of questions, it is becoming 20 to 30, 30 to 40, like that, so on and so forth. That will give you more confidence. And again, the exam format are like this. You will be having a scenario based that are 1 page long, and you need to read the complete scenario, and you might need to answer the relevant questions that they are asking for within that. Some of them are very long questions, some of them are medium questions, some of them are very short. Some of them are one-liner technically, and then that one-liner are nothing but testing your knowledge areas straightforward. And in that, they will not talk about how do you actually manage the agile projects. No, definitely not. They will not mention even agile at all. Sometimes some questions which will say the delivery model is agile. That doesn't mean that you're referring to agile. So some of those things are very much important for you to watch out and don't get too much carried away to answer your questions based on that. How many attempts are allowed? Shantanu, I'll actually tell you, to be very honest, don't look into the aspect of how many attempts. Look into the positive note that you are able to clear at the first time. You are actually eligible to take it for 3 times, if I'm correct. Do you think with the advent of all the other methodologies like Agile, DA, PgMP credentials still hold? Abhishek, to answer your question, it is like this, right? Each of these particular certifications do have its own value. Whether you're going to follow all of them within the organization, it depends upon the organization. But as an individual, you are able to demonstrate your knowledge competency, not the real-time practical competency, but the knowledge competency that will help you to fit into Agile or a DA. So there are tons of certifications that are available, but this is basically the path that you might need to follow. Obtaining a PgMP versus discipline Agile, there are 2 different things. Same way, obtaining the discipline Agile versus safe, 2 different things. But if you're asking me DA is best or safe is best, I really don't want to go into that particular debate or comparison at this point of time, because both of them are 2 different worlds. DA is completely offered by PMI, and in fact, from the DA perspective, it's a digital discipline agile consortium was a smaller organization before even getting into PMI. PMI bought over that organization to really to be in competence with SAFE. That's why the reason they actually bought that particular discipline agile. Again, there are a lot of political reasons behind it, and there are a lot of other logistics. So then comparing again DA versus SAFE, both of them are 2 different things. Both of them are talking about the agile framework same, yes, of course. But both of them methodologies are different. Framework is completely different. So I don't know. To answer your question, you need to watch out your market study, and you need to actually determine what is best for you. PgMP is best for you? Of course, yes. PgMP cannot be compared with agile certifications. PgMP cannot be compared with other things. For example, if you hold a PgMP within the safe world, you can be an RTE. RTE is nothing but a program manager. But in order to gain that particular experience and knowledge, you need to be more familiar within the safe world. How you are going to set the release train, how you are going to manage the delivery model of the release train, how you are going to manage multiple release trains. There are a lot of things that you need to look into it. But if you're trying to compare between PgMP to RTE, the role, the responsibilities are same. But for you to obtain that corresponding credential, it is different. So each one is a different ball game. You need to really weigh to yourself how you can manage it. Okay. Will we have PDUs from this session? I believe, yes, there will be one PDO that has been offered by ProThoughts. Okay. Maybe probably I'm actually going to open up the poll right now. Let me see. Probably if you guys can actually provide the feedback on the poll, if you click the button, I believe you should be able to receive those particular poll and then click on it. How was this session? And provide your kind of feedback. And when are you planning to take the PgMP? Whoever is interested in the next PgMP session, let me know and let ProThoughts know. We can actually arrange a quick kind of a touch point, and then we can take it from there to really to move forward. And as well, you can also you're also welcome to reach me out in the email that has been provided as part of this, and let me know if you have any specific questions around the PgMP, or even as a matter of fact, other certifications areas. I'm happy to actually respond to you back. Okay, looks like pretty much everybody has completed the poll. Thanks a lot for giving the kind of feedback, and let me know in however we can actually improve upon on some of these particular sessions. I'm happy to adapt it to make it more better. Thank you, guys.